Why would a 9-year-old girl walk onto a secured military compound alone, without hesitation, without fear, and point at something that wasn't supposed to exist? The wind off the water carried rust and salt. That's all this place offered. No flags, no ceremony, no plaques commemorating sacrifice. Just a hardened strip of coast where Tier 1 operators came when the world had taken too much and they needed to remember how to be still. The compound didn't have a name, not officially. It was just coordinates, concrete, and silence. 5 SEALs had been stationed here for 12 days, long enough for the routine to calcify, wake before dawn, drills until the body remembered what the mind tried to forget. Recovery. Then drills again. No war stories, no brotherhood speeches, just movement, clean and controlled, the kind that kept the darker thoughts at bay. Chief Petty Officer Dempsey led without speaking. That's how it worked. If he moved, they moved. If he spoke, they moved faster. His team respected the silence because they understood what lived inside it. They'd all seen things that didn't translate into words. Some mornings, the only communication was the sound of boots on gravel and the metallic click of gear being checked, rechecked, and checked again. This morning was supposed to be routine. Light wind, clear sky, gear bags lined near the post outside the annex. Petty Officer Grant Wells had stripped his outer layer to adjust his sling wrap. As he rolled his sleeve down, a mark on the inside of his forearm caught the light. Small, circular, split clean down the center by a vertical slash. No one commented, but 3 sets of eyes drifted toward it. Wells caught them watching. "What? You don't usually show that," Ken muttered. "Didn't mean to." Wells adjusted his cuff. "Forgot I still had it." "Hard to forget," Dempsey said. Nobody laughed. Nobody needed to. That mark wasn't a unit tattoo. It didn't come from command. You couldn't find it in any official log. It belonged to 6 people in the world. 5 of them were standing in that gravel pullout right now. They'd gotten it after passing through a joint selection program so classified it didn't have a proper name. Just a year, a fire team, and a woman who led them through hell and brought them back breathing. They never used her name anymore. Didn't need to. "She," Ken would say. "Ma'am," Wells might add just once, and only if the conversation bent toward memory. They called her Chief, and she was the reason they were still alive. It happened during a denied territory insertion. Bad intel, no extraction. She stayed behind, bought them time, rerouted their exit, and then she was gone. No body, no beacon, no return. Just a 2-line report that came back redacted and final. KIA, presumed unrecoverable. Dempsey didn't speak about that mission, not even in debrief. Nobody did. When they got reassigned months later, the bond had gone unspoken but permanent. That tattoo wasn't pride, it was survival. Dempsey glanced down at his own arm, hidden beneath long sleeves. Same spot, same mark. "Still have it?" Wells asked quietly. "Always," Dempsey said. He scanned the horizon. The perimeter was still quiet. MPs rotating at the gate. No unusual movement. And then, out of the shimmer near the service road, just beyond the annex fencing, a figure appeared. Small, steady, a girl. Maybe 9 or 10 years old, wearing a windbreaker zipped too high, hair tied back unevenly, shoes scuffed nearly white at the toes, no base pass, no vehicle, no panic, just walking straight toward them. Dempsey didn't move, he just said one thing, "Quiet." Because nobody outside this circle should ever recognize that mark. Behind him the gravel shifted, Callan straightened, Wells turned, the girl kept walking, alone, deliberate, eyes locked forward, and everything in Dempsey's gut tightened. She crossed the open ground like she belonged there. No badge, no escort, no hesitation, just steady footfalls over the gravel shoulder, arms at her sides, windbreaker zipped too high, sleeves swallowing her wrists. Her shoes slapped the ground with a dull rhythm, too quiet for running, too even for wandering. She didn't glance at the fences, didn't look at the MPs by the gate. She walked like she knew exactly where she was supposed to be. Dempsey didn't move. The others didn't speak. Ken blinked first. We've got a kid. Wells stood straighter. Where the hell did she come from? Eyes on, Dempsey said. She came closer, 10 yards out now, dark ponytail, rough-cut bangs, the kind of scrapes on her knees that came from bus stations and long walks. She looked at none of them until she did. Her eyes went straight to Dempsey's forearm, right where his sleeve was still pushed halfway up from earlier. He hadn't rolled it back down. The tattoo. A circle swept by a clean vertical line. The girl pointed right at it, then said calmly, with no hesitation at all, "My mom had that same tattoo." Everything stopped. No one reached for a weapon. No one called for security. But 5 SEALs, hardened and reassembled twice through fire and silence, went dead still. Even the wind seemed to pause. Because that mark wasn't supposed to exist anywhere else. Not in public, not in ink shops, not in any place a child should have ever seen it. Wells exhaled slowly through his nose. Callan looked like he'd forgotten how to stand. Dempsey's jaw didn't tighten, but his hand dropped casually to cover the ink. Too late. The girl stepped 1 pace closer. Then she dug into her coat pocket and pulled out a weather-worn object. It looked like a folded photo, edges curled, creases smoothed 100 times over. She unfolded it and held it up. A picture, faded, overexposed in the top corner. A woman crouching beside a toddler, windbreaker, ball cap, shadow covering part of her face. But on her forearm, half visible as her sleeve rode up, was the same mark. Not similar, the exact same mark. "See," the girl said softly. No drama, no smile, like she'd been waiting to say it for a long time. Wells's voice finally came tight. "What's your mom's name?" The girl didn't blink. "You already know it." Then she added, even quieter, "But you're not supposed to say it first." What do you do when a ghost's daughter shows up on your doorstep and tells you the person you buried never actually died? The girl sat on a low concrete barrier behind the annex while the team spread out just far enough to form a loose perimeter. No one raised alarms. No one made a call. Not yet. The air was thick with unspoken protocol, the kind that lived between trust and command. Dempsey crouched a few feet away, not directly in front of her. Angled operator posture, not interrogating, listening. "What's your name?" he asked. "Ellie." She said it like someone used to answering questions carefully. "You said your mom has the same tattoo." She nodded. "How?" Ellie didn't look at him. Her gaze stayed on the fence, the gate, the open road beyond. Then, softly, she told me what it meant. Wells stepped closer. "Your mom told you what that mark is." She said it's a promise, that if I ever got scared and saw that tattoo on someone else, I'd be safe. Callan exchanged a look with Dempsey. "When did she tell you that?" Dempsey asked. Ellie's reply was flat. "When they came to the house." That changed the air. Dempsey's tone dropped. "Who?" They didn't say their names. Her voice stayed steady, like she'd repeated the story a few times already. "They knocked, asked if she was someone else, a name I didn't know. They said she was needed again, that it was important." She said no. Wells stepped in. "What happened next?" "They waited outside for a long time. Then they left." "She tell you what to do?" Ellie nodded. "She gave me a paper with a picture. She said if I ever saw this mark on someone wearing a uniform, I should show them the photo and wait. She said they'd know what to do." Dempsey's chest tightened, not from fear, from recognition, because that sounded exactly like something she would say, precise, calm, operational, even in crisis. "Where's your mom now?" he asked. Ellie's eyes finally met his. "I don't know." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of questions no one wanted to ask out loud. Because if she was alive, why didn't she come herself? If she was in danger, why send her daughter alone? And if she'd been hiding all these years, what finally made her surface now? Ken spoke quietly from the side. "Chief, we need to loop command." "Not yet," Dempsey said. "Chief." "Not yet." Wells understood. So did Callan. Because the moment they made this official, the moment they filed a report, Ellie would become a case number. Her mother would become a file. And files had a way of disappearing again. Dempsey looked at the girl, really looked at her. She wasn't crying, wasn't begging. She was just sitting there, small and steady, waiting for the adults to decide if she was worth protecting. "Ellie," he said, "did your mom tell you anything else?" She reached into her pocket again. This time she pulled out a small piece of paper, folded, worn. She handed it to him. Dempsey unfolded it carefully. It was a handwritten note. No signature, just one line. "If they find her, they'll finish what they started." His hands went cold. Wells leaned in, read it over his shoulder. "Jesus." Callan's voice came low. "Whose?" Dempsey didn't answer, because he already knew, or at least he knew enough. There were programs that didn't end when operators left. There were missions that stayed classified long after the bodies were buried. And there were people with clearance and authority, who believed that some secrets were safer dead. If she'd been marked KIA and then resurfaced years later, that wasn't a miracle. That was a liability. "She's not coming back," Ellie said quietly. "Not until it's safe." Dempsey folded the note, slipped it into his pocket. Then he stood, turned to his team, and said the words that would change everything. "We're not reporting this." Ken's eyes widened. "Chief." "We're not reporting this," Dempsey repeated. "Not yet. Not until we know what we're dealing with." "That's a violation," Callan said. "I know. They'll bury us." "I know." Wells stepped forward. "So what do we do?" Dempsey looked down at Ellie, then back at his team. "We find out who came to her house. We find out why, and we make sure they don't come back." It wasn't protocol. It wasn't legal. But it was the only thing that made sense. Because the woman who saved their lives didn't send her daughter to a military base for paperwork. She sent her because she knew these men would do what was right, even if it meant stepping outside the lines. And she was right. How do you protect someone who's already been erased from every official record? The answer: you don't go through official channels. Dempsey made one call, not to command, not to intelligence, to a contact he hadn't spoken to in 3 years, a man who worked in records management but had clearance levels most generals didn't know existed. His name was Briggs, civilian, crisp shirts, a badge too fresh to be earned the hard way. The conversation lasted 90 seconds. "I need a favor." "What kind?" "The quiet kind." Briggs paused. "How quiet?" "Obsidian." Another pause, longer this time. "That program's been dead for 6 years." "Then this should be easy." Briggs sighed. "What do you need?" "A name, a file, and a list of anyone who accessed it in the last month." "That's not a favor, that's career suicide." "Then it's a good thing you owe me." Briggs hung up, but Dempsey knew he'd call back, because 3 years ago Dempsey had pulled Briggs's son out of a situation that never made it into any report. The kind of situation that ended careers, or lives. Briggs remembered, and debts like that didn't expire. 20 minutes later, Dempsey's phone buzzed. A text, no name, just a file number and a location. He showed it to Wells. "That's admin liaison," Wells said. "3rd floor, restricted access." "Then we go restricted." They left Ellie with Ken and Callan, not because they didn't trust her, because what came next wasn't something a 9-year-old needed to see. The admin building was quiet, sterile, the kind of place where decisions were made in conference rooms with locked doors and no windows. Dempsey and Wells walked in like they belonged. No one stopped them. No one asked questions. Clearance badges opened doors. Confidence did the rest. They found the office on the 3rd floor, a small corner unit with a glass panel door and a nameplate that read, continuity operations. Dempsey knocked once, didn't wait for an answer, walked in. A man sat behind the desk, mid-40s, thinning hair, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked up, startled. "Can I help you?" Dempsey closed the door behind them. "You accessed a file 3 weeks ago. Obsidian class. I need to know why." The man's face went carefully blank. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." Wells stepped forward, leaned against the wall. Casual, but the message was clear. This conversation wasn't ending until they got answers. The man set his glasses down. "Even if I had accessed a file like that, which I'm not confirming, I wouldn't be authorized to discuss it with you." "Try." "Gentlemen, I think you should leave." Dempsey didn't move. A woman was marked KIA 6 years ago. Obsidian program. Denied territory op. Her file was supposed to be sealed, but someone reopened it. Someone sent a retrieval team to her house. And now her daughter is sitting on a military base, terrified because she doesn't know if her mother's alive or dead. The man's jaw tightened. "I can't." "Can't or won't." Silence. Wells spoke quietly. "We're not here to make trouble, we just want to know who's looking for her, and why." The man stared at them for a long moment. Then he sighed, pulled a file from a locked drawer and slid it across the desk. "This doesn't leave this room." Dempsey opened it. The first page was a personnel record, name redacted, photo redacted, but the mission history was there. Clear as day, Obsidian, denied territory, declared KIA, and then stamped in red across the bottom, status review active. "Someone flagged her file for reinstatement," the man said quietly. 3 weeks ago, internal review, continuity operations." "Reinstatement," Wells's voice sharpened. "She's been dead for 6 years." "Apparently not." Dempsey flipped through the pages. "Who authorized this?" The man hesitated. Then he pointed to a signature at the bottom of the last page. A name Dempsey didn't recognize, but the clearance level made his blood run cold. "They want her back," the man said. "Not for debriefing, for containment." Wells leaned forward. "Containment." "She knows things. Things that were supposed to stay buried with that program. If she's alive, she's a liability, and liabilities get cleaned up." Dempsey's hands clenched. "They're going to kill her." The man didn't answer. He didn't need to. Wells looked at Dempsey. "What do we do?" Dempsey closed the file, slid it back across the desk. "We finish what she started." "What does it take to rewrite a woman's death and give her back her life?" "It takes 5 men who refuse to let the system bury her twice." Dempsey and Wells left the admin building with a plan. Not a perfect one, but operational plans never were. They just needed to be good enough, and fast enough. Because somewhere out there, a woman was hiding, and the people looking for her weren't going to stop. Back at the annex, Ellie was still sitting on the concrete barrier. Ken had given her a bottle of water. Callan stood a few feet away, watching the perimeter. When Dempsey and Wells returned, both men looked up. "Well," Callan asked. Dempsey crouched in front of Ellie. "We need to find your mom." She shook her head. "She said not to look for her. She said it would make things worse." "It's already worse." Ellie's eyes filled with something that wasn't quite fear, more like resignation. "She won't come, not until they stop looking." "Then we make them stop." "How?" Dempsey glanced at Wells, then back at her. "By proving she's not a threat." "But she is," Ellie said quietly. "She knows things they don't want anyone to know." "Like what?" Ellie hesitated. Then she said, so softly they almost missed it, "She knows how they buried the others." The temperature seemed to drop. Ken stepped closer. "What others?" "The ones who didn't make it out." Ellie's voice stayed steady. "She said the mission went wrong, not because of bad intel, because someone wanted it to go wrong, and when she figured it out, they tried to make sure she never told anyone." Dempsey felt something crack open in his chest. because that's what they'd always suspected. That's what none of them could ever prove, that the mission that killed her or was supposed to kill her wasn't a failure. It was a cover-up. Wells's voice came low. She has proof. Ellie nodded. She said if anything happened to her, I should find you, and I should tell you where she hid it. Every man in that circle went still. Where? Dempsey asked. Ellie reached into her pocket one more time, pulled out a small key, old, rusted at the edges. She said you'd know what this opens. Dempsey took the key, turned it over in his hand, and then he saw it, etched into the metal, barely visible, a number, a locker number, from a facility they'd all been stationed at 6 years ago, right before the mission that took her away. She never left, Wells breathed. She's been waiting. Dempsey looked at his team. Pack light, we move in an hour. They didn't ask where. They didn't need to, because they all knew what came next. They were going to find her. They were going to get the proof. And they were going to make sure the people who tried to erase her never got the chance again. But first, they had to keep Ellie safe. Dempsey pulled Callan aside. Take her to the contractor housing unit. Secure entry. Don't log her name. Just keep her inside until we get back. Callan nodded, and if someone asks, tell them she's a dependent of record under temporary witness protection. That's not real. It is now. Callan didn't argue. He just took Ellie by the hand and led her toward the vehicle lot. She looked back once, just once, and Dempsey gave her a nod, a promise that this wasn't the end, that they wouldn't let her mother disappear again. And then she was gone. Wells came up beside him. You know what we're walking into, right? Yeah. And you're doing it anyway. Dempsey looked at the key in his hand. She didn't send her daughter to us for help. She sent her because she knew we'd finish what she started, and she was right. Wells smiled just a little. Then let's go get our chief back. They moved fast. No fanfare. No briefings. Just 4 men in civilian clothes driving a nondescript vehicle toward a facility that wasn't supposed to exist anymore. The old training compound, decommissioned 3 years ago, but the lockers were still there, rusted, forgotten, perfect for hiding something no one was supposed to find. They arrived just after dark. No guards, no lights, just empty buildings and the sound of wind rattling through broken windows. Dempsey led the way, flashlight cutting through the shadows. They found the locker room, rows of metal doors, most of them hanging open, but one near the back was still locked. Dempsey slid the key into the slot, turned it. The door creaked open. Inside was a small waterproof case. He pulled it out, set it on the ground, and opened it. Papers, photos, USB drives, and a handwritten note on top. If you're reading this, it means I'm out of time. Take this to Briggs. He'll know what to do. And tell my daughter I'm sorry. Tell her I tried. Wells picked up one of the photos. His face went pale. Jesus Christ. Dempsey looked. It was a mission briefing, dated 6 years ago. Signatures at the bottom, names he recognized, high level, command level, and a stamp across the top, expendable assets. They sent her to die, Wells whispered. They sent all of them to die. Dempsey's jaw tightened. Not anymore. They gathered everything, sealed the case, and drove back in silence, because what they'd just found wasn't just proof, it was a reckoning. When they arrived back at the base, Dempsey made one more call, to Briggs. I've got something you need to see. What is it? The end of a cover-up. 30 minutes later, they were back in the admin building. This time, Briggs was waiting. He took the case, opened it, and went through everything, page by page, photo by photo. And when he was done, he looked up at Dempsey with something close to horror. Do you understand what this means? Yeah, it means someone's going to jail. Briggs shook his head. It means someone's going to disappear, and it might be you. Then make sure it's the right people. Briggs stared at him for a long moment, then he nodded. I'll handle it, but you need to bring her in. If she's still out there, she's not safe. We don't know where she is. Then find her. How do you find someone who's been trained to disappear? You don't. You wait for her to find you. Dempsey knew she was watching, somewhere close, waiting to see if they'd follow through, waiting to see if the men she'd saved would save her back. So he didn't search. He just went to the one place she'd know to look. The memorial wall. It was tucked behind the main barracks, a small courtyard, plaques lining the walls with names of operators who'd fallen in the line of duty. Her name wasn't there. Officially, she didn't exist, but there was a blank space, right where her name should have been. Dempsey stood in front of it alone. The sun was setting, shadows stretching long across the ground, and then he heard it, footsteps, quiet, deliberate. He didn't turn around. "Took you long enough," he said. A voice answered from behind him, steady, familiar. "I wasn't sure you'd come." He turned slowly, and there she was. Older, tired, hair shorter than he remembered, but her eyes were the same, sharp, alert, alive. "Chief," he said quietly. She smiled, just a little. "You don't have to call me that anymore." "Old habits." She stepped forward, stopped a few feet away. "You found it." "We found it. And Briggs. He's handling it." She exhaled slowly, relief, real relief. "Then it's over." "Not yet. They still have your file open. They still think you're a liability." "I am." "Not anymore. We made sure of it." She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in 6 years something in her softened. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes, we did." "Why?" Dempsey held her gaze. "Because you came back for us, every time, and we don't leave our people behind." Her eyes filled, just for a second, then she blinked it away. "Where's Ellie?" "Safe, waiting for you." She nodded. "Can I see her?" "Yeah, but first, there's something you need to know." He showed her the updated file. The one Briggs had processed 2 hours ago. New classification, protected status, custodial exception, retrieval clause nullified, chain of custody closed. "You're free," Dempsey said, "for real this time." She read it twice, then folded it carefully and slipped it into her pocket. "Thank you." "Don't thank us, just don't disappear again." She smiled. "I won't, not from her, not anymore." They walked back together, through the courtyard, past the barracks, to the contractor housing unit where Ellie was waiting. And when the door opened and the girl saw her mother, she didn't run. She just stood there, eyes wide, lips trembling. "Mom." "Yeah, baby, I'm here." Ellie crossed the room in 3 steps and threw her arms around her mother's waist. And this time, the woman didn't hold back. She held her daughter tight, buried her face in her hair, and let herself feel everything she'd been holding in for 6 years. Dempsey stepped back, gave them space, because this moment didn't belong to him, it belonged to them. But before he left, the woman looked up, caught his eye, and mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." He nodded once, that was all. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do isn't speak. It's act. 3 weeks later, the case was closed. Officially, not publicly. There was no press release, no ceremony, just a memo that moved through internal channels and buried the names of the people who'd tried to turn operators into ghosts. The woman and her daughter moved into permanent housing, not on base, somewhere quiet, somewhere safe, with new names, new records, and a legal shield so strong that even the people who tried to erase her couldn't touch her now. The 5 SEALs went back to their rotation. No medals, no recognition, just the quiet knowledge that they'd done what was right, even when it meant stepping outside the lines. One afternoon, Dempsey was back at the annex range when he spotted her at the edge of the vehicle lot. Same cap, same posture. She didn't approach, didn't linger, just stood there beside her daughter, watching. When their eyes met, she nodded once. No wave, no smile, just a quiet signal between people who understood what it meant to walk out of your own death and take back what was stolen. Wells stepped up beside Dempsey, so she wasn't a ghost. Dempsey didn't look away. No, she was the one they couldn't control. And maybe that's the real lesson. That sometimes, the people who survive aren't the ones who follow orders. They're the ones who know when to break them. The ones who choose dignity over compliance. The ones who understand that true strength isn't about how loud you are. It's about what you do when no one's watching. Because in the end, the system doesn't protect the brave. It protects the obedient. And the only thing standing between erasure and freedom is someone willing to say, not this time, not her, not anymore. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts.